Hi everyone, my name is Ewing and I'm the artist in residence at the Boston Children's Museum, and I'm here because it's time for another edition of Ask Eve, where I answer questions left for me by visitors to the installation that I created on the second floor of the Children's Museum, a map home, which you can see through March 14th, and I'm excited to answer some questions from young visitors today. So the first question comes from Mary Kate, age 7, and Mary Kate wants to know, how old are you when you became an artist? And the tricky thing about that question is I think that becoming an artist is something that you kind of have to do every day. Like every day I wake up and I decide if I feel good enough and tough enough and strong enough and full of ideas to make art that day. And maybe I don't feel like calling myself an artist that day, or I feel like it's too much pressure, but I have to work to keep my confidence up and do it anyway. So depending on who you ask, my mom and dad would probably tell you I became an artist when I was 4 or 5, but I think I didn't really feel comfortable calling myself an artist until I was 24 or 25. And I think that it would have been nice if I had that confidence a little bit sooner. So I hope, Mary Kate, that you have the confidence to make some art and call yourself an artist, even though you're only 7. You're never too young to make art. My next question comes from another 7-year-old, and that's Tanae, age 7. And Tanae wants to know, how did you make your art that's in the Children's Museum? So the piece of art that's in the Children's Museum is really, really, really big. It's like 30 or 40 feet wide, and it's on a huge piece of canvas. And I made it in my apartment right here, and my apartment is really small. So I had to roll the canvas out on the ground and crawl around with no socks or shoes on and paint and stretch my legs and my arms until I got really tired. And it took me a lot of days and a lot of time, and also a lot of assistance and help and feedback from my partners at the Children's Museum, because one thing about making art is it's always helpful to get feedback and insight and ideas and criticism from other people as you go along. So the short answer is I made it with canvas and paint and time and practice and a little bit of frustration here and there, but I stuck with it and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And my last question for today comes from Hannah, age 8, and Hannah wants to know, how do you make a beautiful picture? Hannah, that is a really good question. I think that the tricky thing about art is that everybody has different opinions about what is beautiful. And so you might make something that you feel is really, truly beautiful, especially if it expresses something that is true, that you really felt, or an idea that you had, or an experience in your life that you had that you want to tell people about with your art. It might feel like it's really beautiful to you. And some people might see it and agree with you and completely understand right away. And other people are going to see it and they're going to go, ugh, that is ugly and yucky, and no amount of explaining is going to convince them otherwise. So the thing is, you kind of have to decide for yourself what you think a beautiful picture looks like, and then you have to practice and practice and practice until you can make something that sort of matches what's in your head, even if you can never quite get there. And it's also really helpful to go visit museums and galleries and look up art on the internet, or at places like the Boston Children's Museum, or in books from the library, or books at your school, so that you can get different ideas about things that are beautiful. So I'll give you an example before we go. There's a really famous painter, his name is Jackson Pollock, and he made these paintings kind of look like this. And you can see a lot of his paintings, like they're in the book they're small, but in real life they're really big. And they have like a lot of just splatters on them. And a lot of people might see this and say, that's not beautiful. See, like this or like this. But other people would really disagree. I happen to think that they're very beautiful, and a lot of people agree with me because Jackson Pollock is very famous. But the amazing thing is that art actually doesn't have to be beautiful. There's a trick that people like to make you think that in order for art to be good or worth something, it has to be pretty. That is not true. Art is about human life, and it's about things that happen to you. And sometimes things that happen to you aren't pretty. They might be ugly or scary or bad, or they might make you angry, they might make you cry, and that's okay. Art can be about that too. So I hope that you'll keep practicing to make the beautiful picture that you want to make, but even if you don't, you can still be a great artist. And that's all the time we have for today. So thanks for talking with me, and I hope to see some of you at the Boston Children's Museum. Bye.